All righty. So here we go. Um, I started this program of this topic of do's and don'ts of trialing CBD because I get a lot of these questions as a cannabis educator of what works best, what are good products, or stories of trialing a CBD and not working. And absolutely, it's not for everybody in every condition, but by all means, there are a lot of things that symptoms that CBD can help with. And maybe that trial that somebody, expressed for me also wasn't done, to the best, or maybe it was the product. I don't know. But there's a lot of things that go into trialing your CBD. So let's make sure that we are, just want to make sure we are recording before I actually go. All right, we are. So we are good to go because that's happened before. So welcome and let's get started. All right. So who am I and why am I talking about this? Welcome, everyone. I'm Mo of More Kind of Care. I've been a registered dietitian for over 30 years, doing a lot of work in food service and auditing and guiding people in proper eating. But what I realized is cannabis is an herb. It is a food item, and it has amazing medical properties, wellness properties that just couldn't be ignored once I was looking at the science. Probably about in 2016, when I really kind of started to look at things, did I go into the rabbit hole of learning more and was able to find a certification program through the Dietetic Association that gave me professional credits. Bonus, right? But I have been personally guiding in the last 2 years officially through my business, More Kind of Care. Doing one-on-one guidance is definitely what I'm out there doing, but educations, workshops, some advocacy work for medical cannabis patients and for people who have been harmed by the war on drugs. So we need to keep that in mind as we consume this once prohibited plant is now available for us as yet a health tool, and you'll see. I also started a beginner outdoor grow program, meaning that in some states, you are legally allowed to grow your own, which is wonderful for a variety of reasons. And it's just like tomatoes. So maybe in your state, if that's legal, maybe you want to consider growing your own, one for connection to the plant, connection to earth. And if you're an avid gardener, you'd be surprised at the yield that you can utilize for your own medical benefits or share to those that need it. That utilizes your great growing, abilities. So I got my certification through the Holistic Cannabis Academy. And that was from two dietitians who wrote a book, The CBD Miracle. And it was about their kids' relief in their symptoms, and then dove into the science and wrote a book and a program about it. So I am grateful. So for those of you that are here, you may be curious about CBD for one of two reasons. One is that you don't know anything about it and you're like, okay, I've heard about this. It's obviously legal now since prohibition. And we're seeing a lot of information that's going on about what it can do. So just to clarify, CBD is cannabis. The cannabis plant is the blanket kind of plant species word that is the true way to explain what who this plant is. But in that plant, just like all plants, there's many molecules, and what we have been trained to only understand is that it only has the THC, which is the molecule that connects with our brain receptors that may at certain doses with certain people's tolerance give some type of perception change, what they call highs or psychoactive, right? But the other major molecule in this plant is CBD. Now, there are a bunch of other molecules that we're not going to talk about today that we're finding with new science, now that we can study this plant legally, that they're finding way more information. So look for other topics or other information if you're interested in knowing more about that. But CBD is basically an anti-inflammatory molecule that connects with different receptors in our body than the THC molecule that connects with these receptors in our brain and all over our body. And we found these receptors probably, I think the first receptors were found in the 50s and 60s in the plant, or I should say the molecules were actually found in the plant in around that time. And the receptors were found, let's just say, in the 70s and 80s. And definitely by the 80s, we knew about the molecules actually in our body that directly connect with this plant, which is fascinating. And what's also sad is that we've known this since the 80s scientifically, that we actually have mechanisms of action in our body that interact directly with this plant. Now, this is external, right? Meaning that we take this plant and we consume it. The wild thing is that our bodies make the molecule that is similar to the plant molecule in our body ourselves. So there is a reason that we make this molecule. But when we have kind of beaten up our body or we can't get enough from a variety of different reasons, here lies an external molecules through this plant that we can supplement into our body to get those results that we're looking for, which is for CBD, the biggest thing is anti-inflammatory, which is the root of all disease. So keep that in mind, that this is not anything new, and that unfortunately, with prohibition, we have been held back from the science and the benefits of this, but not anymore. And now we're trying to get this education out to everybody to realize we have a great tool available to us, and that is cannabis, whether it be CBD that we're going to primarily talk today. But you can't talk about cannabis without talking about THC, or what they call marijuana, or all the other names that have been given to it. But these are the two major molecules in this plant. CBD is non-psychoactive, meaning non-impairing or non-high, but it does interact with our neurological system. So some scientists don't like to say non-psychoactive because it actually does activate things in our brain and the neurological systems, but it doesn't change our perception, so to speak, as we're familiar from THC's long history, vilified, but has many medical benefits. So to clarify, when you're talking about products with CBD, the rule or the law is that if you make a product that is considered CBD, meaning federally legal, it has to have less than 0.03% of THC. If it has more, then it moves into the regulated cannabis market, because it can, build up. So when we clarify that, that is just the difference. CBD comes from the cannabis or marijuana plant. It's just not the molecule that changes your perception. So it acts more like an herbal medicine, which it is. It acts more like an herb of anti-inflammatory properties, similar to cumin or all the others that we know that are good for you. All the herbs are good for you. This is just one that has come back into our tool chest of wellness that was there from the beginning of time. So as we know, the history of this, I just need to go through this quick because we do want to get to the dirty of how do we get best results. But if you are new to understanding cannabis as a whole, or now CBD versus THC, and really getting deeper into the specifics of how we use it therapeutically, this has been used since the beginning of time. Evidence of ancient use spanning all cultures have used this plant, from medical to spiritual to religious to building things like it's another component like cotton. It's a competitor to cotton. So like our sails in our naval ships, clothing, tents from the Native Americans, the teepees. This is a super versatile plant, and hence why it was traded across, travels in the ancient times. Every culture knew the value of this. And so this is only an American problem that we created out of a lot of political and racist intentions, because cannabis as a whole was in our U.S. Pharmacopedia and was entered in at 1851. So it was used with our pharmacists, our medicine people, because they knew it worked. They know how to work with it. And everything, food, drinks, herbs, anything can be helpful at one dose and not helpful at another, right? And so that's why you had it managed by um, pharmacists and physicians at that time, because it's a tincture, right? You got a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and there are some values in knowing proper dosing and strengths, which is what pharmacology is, right? But along here we go, and a variety of reasons, and you can look into that history. But cannabis as a whole, was removed from our laws and our ability to grow it and to cultivate it and to utilize it for all of its properties, whether it be paper, to linens, to medicine, to spirituality, was removed for a lot of reasons. Most of it was political, in squashing other industries, meaning that hemp was competing directly with cotton, hemp was competing directly with petroleum, hemp was competing, or cannabis, meaning those that were using for spiritual or recreational sense, saw that as a threat to our society, because there's potentially altered thinking, and maybe they're going to be thinking on their own, and certain leaders don't like that type of thinking from their constituents, right? But we do know that it was removed for a variety of reasons, and which then pulled it away from our market, and both for our gross national product, right? It was a big product that we could sell to ourselves and utilize ourselves, or to other nations. So a lot of damage happened through not looking at the real uses and science, and was only driven by certain few of leaders who felt that the removal of it benefited them in many ways. It certainly didn't benefit us as U.S. Residents. But what they did do around the 1930s is that they lumped both CBD hemp, which is the non-psychoactive part of the plant, and the stalk fiber seed part. They just lumped that all together into classifying it as a class 1 drug. And that's where it still sits today federally, even though it has been challenged from the day that it was lumped into that classification. It has been challenged by activists and scientists and pharmacists and anybody else that knew the value of this plant. So if you want to learn more about that, it's quite a journey of a story, and gets you to question, what and why, and how is that happening today. But the secondary wave of this, of the prohibition of this whole plant, right? So whether it was CBD, THC, or the hemp stalk and seeds lumped all together, it also was used as a weapon to say that this was a very vilified plant that would change you and kind of create havoc in your life, as we know from Reefer Madness propaganda. That was not rooted in science, but only rooted in racism and political gain. So I can't do any webinar without identifying that, and I hope that you look into that a little bit more. But we are here on the backs of everyone who has been harmed by that purposeful, intentional war on people of color specifically. And so today I hope that we can go beyond that and really highlight the benefits of the plant and remove those that have been harmed by the intentional going after the law and putting people in jail for this plant. So I'll stop it there. So what are these benefits? So why is everybody so interested in using CBD? CBD specifically, because all the conversations and hype is, of course, about the dispensaries and THC use and the risks and benefits, which there are of anything that you use, right? But CBD specifically has been utilized from the beginning of time for these conditions: anxiety and mood disorders, depression, which includes panic disorders, OCDs. Veterans are getting relief from PTSD. A lot of these different neurological disorders have been managed with CBD. It has been known to help in our bodies, specifically with anti-inflammatory, which then will interact and cause, good reactions and actions to manage other diseases. So inflammation is the root of all disease. So if you can lower that by certain herbs and practices, and CBD by all means is only one of them, but it does do a heck of a job in balancing out our body, right? Internally, they have found that we have these two receptors that I spoke about, and this plant connects with that. And you say, well, why do I need that? Why do I need that external if I have it internally? Well, it's because stress, anxiety, not enough sleep, all those, health hits, right? Things that aren't healthy for us, beat that system up. And this is an external way to support that internal system, what we call now the endocannabinoid system, with receptors in our body called CB1 and CB2 receptors, that is really happening in our body. So it's not just I like this makes me feel better. Oh, they can actually follow what happens, what turns on, what turns off, cause and effect inside the body to understand why this works so well. So they are the CBD benefits, along with a whole bunch of other things that it can do when you're working with a cannabis clinician who can really target your needs and then give you the right product and dosing. So here you are, you're saying, yes, I am interested. I'm curious about this. People get started because they either saw it on the news or they bought it online or a family member suggested it to them for their condition. And what happens is if they trial it, following, say, manufacturer or labeling, of course, they're selling you a product. And what we know about cannabis therapeutics is, one, it's very, very personal, meaning that what works for one person doesn't work for another. So if you have a friend and be like, oh, I tried this, it worked great for me, that's great. And then I bet it did, but how will it work for you? And dosing is very personalized based on the condition you're managing and all the other factors that go into deciding how you use it, what products you use, and how often and what the concentration is. But there are some general tips. So in general, I can give you some ideas that we're here today, that if you do believe that you want to go give it a trial and try to get best results on your own, then here are some good tips to get you started. But as you'll see when I'm talking through, of course, as a cannabis educator and guider, I do believe that you can get to your results faster, meaning you get relief faster, and cheaper, meaning that you're not trialing all this stuff or frustrations and not getting results and saying, oh, it didn't work for me. I can, or a clinician or a guide can get you to the right product and dose by working with somebody because it is so personalized. So what are we looking out for? The first thing to do is to know that you are, what are you trying to relieve or gain, right? So symptom, right? So somebody would say a lot of things is rheumatoid arthritis, right? So inflammatory, right? Oh, I have hands and tight hands from rheumatoid arthritis, which is has gotten fantastic results by taking both topical, which I say is the gateway product to get people to realize, oh, this stuff works, is because everybody would, I'll try a topical cream, right? Easy entry if you are not real familiar with the full benefits and feel safe trying a CBD based on the propaganda that you've been given about how unsafe they're trying to tell you it was. That's not true. So I call, topicals the gateway to using cannabis, because you can get topical relief. But what I can say is topical only goes skin deep, which has huge benefits. Everybody loves a good pain cream. but internally there is inflammation happening. So taking CBD internally after you found the results of inflammation will get you to those anti-inflammatory benefits quicker and more relief, right, than just the topical can do. But there's lots of reasons why people are considering using CBD. Most of the time, or I should say, surveys that say, why are they looking to use CBD? Anti-inflammatory effects for all the reasons is definitely number one, because that's what it's found to do the most. What that translates to is pain, anxiety, depression, or mood disorders, and sleep quality. They're like the three major reasons why people are coming to look at this new tool, this new herbal tool, as an option to see if they can get more results than what they're currently using. Right. So when you are trying to determine, is this right for me? Ask yourself, what are you looking to relieve? And when you work with a cannabis clinician, we can let you know, oh, that is something that has been shown to maybe help, right? We can't make any direct claims yet, up to a point, right? But some things are just not related. So it's not an end all be all for all conditions. And I'll say that again, it is not an end all be all. There is no one magic bullet for any of these conditions. It is a tool chest of a variety of things that we know are healthy habits. And that's why I call my practice more Canna Care, because it's not just about the cannabis, although I start with that because we get great results. But we also look, of course, because I'm a dietitian, at diet, which is huge. You are what you eat, and your body responds to what we eat or don't eat, right? And then all the other modalities, right? Stress management, sleep quality, movement, all the good things that we all know. But when we are looking to determine what we're looking for, you want to name it or identify what outcome. And whether that be from a word or a pain, often in pain scale or sleep quality, we put in a scale or a number to it. It just helps you to get to a mindfulness about how you're going to track this, right? So if you're going to start working with a product and you're saying, oh, I'm looking for relief, what relief, right? What lift or what are you looking for? Are you looking for more movement in your hands? Are you looking for more energy? All those different things, because that's going to help you track to know if it's working. So what else can do is that we do want to, we do want to buy products that are consistent. Hold on, I'm getting a little, can't see my slide. We do want to be able to know that the product is safe, right? And so when we buy from licensed businesses, we are, and dispensaries specifically, if you're working with anything that has THC in it, but we're talking about CBD. So you can buy this online, you can buy it at a store, you can buy it in a grocery store, you can buy it in a convenience store, and all these different places kind of lean towards where you can see quality or not. But you can buy CBD through dispensaries, and you can buy CBD that's tested by looking at companies that will give you this information. So buying from a licensed business does then make them required to test. And that is the biggest thing, is that testing and safety, meaning that the product is clean of any pesticides and heavy metals and all those type of things that you don't want in your cannabis, that it actually is the dose and the concentration that you're believe you're taking. And that is really important when it comes to knowing what works for you. And the other reason is that different CBDs either have no THC in it, which is called broad spectrum, or some, a little bit, or even some, meaning more CBD and THC, which we call a 1-to-1. But if you're using a product that we call full spectrum, meaning that has just a little bit of THC, that could build up over time. And if your product is not labeled accurate, meaning that it's been checked and tested, that you might be getting more THC than you're expected. And we may have kind of unwanted effects. And possibly if you're in a job that tests, as we know that has happened to athletes and business people and sort, that they were taken to CBD, but it may have not been properly labeled because they did not purchase it from a vetted CBD company, that the buildup of just a little bit kind of positive a drug test, and then therefore the repercussions of that. So we never want to have that misunderstanding because of the repercussions of it. And again, that's why it's great to work with a cannabis clinician, because we can vet those companies and vet that product to make sure that it was tested by a third party and that its product accuracy in dosing and concentration, you know what you're getting. And it's important when you're trialing, because you want to know that this dose, right, a quarter of a dropper or this milligram was where I got relief, and you want to stay there, right? So you want to make sure that every time you use it on a daily basis, you're getting that same amount. When we're supporting legal businesses, we also are generating supporting those that have said, yes, I am going to make this a legal operation. And they're jumping through major hoops, and they deserve to be purchased from, not only for the required testing and safety and accuracy, but because you're promoting and supporting a legal operation that we all agree to, which gives us tax revenue so that we can support those identified revenues in your state that need either checking in on these businesses to make sure they stay legal and safe. That's the biggest thing, safe, and making sure that we get the support around them with education to minors, education about all of the manufacturing practices. And when you support a legal business, you support normalization of medical cannabis therapy. Right now, it is a cash only endeavor, which means then it's only those that have extra cash, right? Or if you can grow your own, which is a whole other topic. But when you're supporting and going through the right channels, we are normalizing this as a return to this as a tool of medicine. And there's a lot of discrimination still, and very, very strong. So when you do support businesses, you do support that, the use, right? Because there is a lot of discrimination. So you do when you are choosing a product. So you're like, okay, I'm going to go look out. I'm going to look for testing. I'm going to buy from a business that's legal, meaning that you can find them in your state business. That's the quickest, easy way, is if they're registered, right? If you can't find their name or working under a name of the company that you're considering purchasing a CBD product from, that is the red flag. If you can't find them in that state kind of business entity, which is super easy to find on on your state's website. So that's the first and quickest way to find a legal business. The second is harder, is that encouraging you to purchase organic. Now, see, there is not any kind of federal seals of cannabis organic. Some states, like California, industry groups have come up with their own kind of certifications. But the reason why it's important is that the plant itself pulls everything out of the ground. It's called bioaccumulator, right? It's used to clean soil after a big oil spill or chemicals in there. So we have used that in history of using this plant to clean up soil sites, to be able to reuse it, which is a fabulous thing. But if you think about that, if then your CBD does that, and the practices of the grow of where you're getting your CBD from uses a lot of pesticides and chemicals to either increase their yield or to ward off pests, if there is not a way to clean that out before you consume it, which there are ways to do that, but I would prefer to not even have that in the first place. So there are companies that use these boosters to boost yields, and then clean it up before testing or after testing if they failed. But wouldn't you rather have organic practices that still may have organic properties in them, but it's done in a more mindful way, that they are using nature to manage pests. They're using regular soil amendments that are natural soil amendments, so that everything in there is not something that you have to take out of your plant. Similar to tomatoes, quite frankly, any of our grown fruits and vegetables are better for you if they're organic. Unfortunately, it's just more expensive. So do emphasize on the dirty dozen to avoid, or the clean list when you're looking at that, if that's a priority to you. And it is a bonus. There is regenerative soil practices and a lot of this regenerative farm practices that are like a revival, because it does bring out more quality of a product. So looking for organic, I believe, is really important when you're choosing a CBD product, because then you're not worried about what could possibly be in it or how it was grown. There are also, you do want to make sure that you have accuracy. This is truly a personalized medicine. And when you have a change up in your routine, that changes your results. So when you trial something, you do want to make sure that you are consistent, right? That you have the same route of consumption and frequency and consistencies, because it can interact with medical, with your gut health, other drugs metabolizing. So all these different things can change up the effects that you get from the CBD. So do understand that, you have to give it some time. A lot of people try it out. They maybe tried inconsistency. They maybe go through a full bottle, right? They get a bottle like this, and it takes them like 3 months to try it. And they're like, oh, it didn't work. Sometimes it takes about, well, some people get results in a day, right? They take it one time, add a dose, and they feel that relief. In general, what we found is about a month up to 3 months is when you can see those results. And some, it takes about a year. And that really is those that have complex medical diseases, and you're managing things and you're going really slow because of that. So, a 1 year is solely because of the complexity of that. So keep that in mind when you're, managing and looking at it's not working. Well, a lot of times maybe it's there's some things. So it takes some time. So consider that. The other thing is, to make sure you need to share this with your prescribing clinicians. Now, CBD is generally recognized as safe. That's what GRAS means. Now, there are some considerations. If you are on a medication that you have been told to kind of watch your grapefruit consumption, right? It kind of goes through the same pathways. It does not mean that you cannot take CBD. It just means that you need to then go slower and see how it adjusted the results of other medications. And that's why it's so important to share with your clinician that you're either interested in it and curious, and you're looking around and showing up today and learning about it. But you always want to disclose that. If you are working with a clinician and they are not familiar with CBD or any of the benefits of cannabis therapy, one is you can support them with some education, send them to websites, or work with one, find a clinician who has been trained. There are lots of clinical programs out there to get up to speed, so to speak, on cannabis therapeutics. And if you need that help, so that, like, from a cannabis coach or guide that I'm not a prescribing clinician who is able to give you a medical card, but there are a lot of ancillary clinicians out there, meaning dietitians, nurses, pharmacists, that can kind of interpret the data and speak with your clinician, and provide them with the information for them to determine, what's going on with you, as your main clinician. Some people switched up clinicians, but the biggest thing here is that it's always advised to let them know, because there could be some adjustments in other medications you are taking. Do know though that CBD is legal, so you're not doing anything wrong by trying this. When you start to add in THC, there is other legalities that happen, in regards to, jobs and age and so forth, and where you can consume it and so forth. But do know that CBD is federally legal, so you can purchase it in stores and online. And again, like I said, making sure that they're legitimate businesses, they're registered, they're testing their products. And of course, a cannabis guide can always help you with that. So keep that in mind. Things that you shouldn't do. I guess you've heard a lot about the testing here, but don't consume any product if you don't know that it's been tested. And you say, all right, how do I know it's tested? It is called a COA. So it's basically like your label. It's your safety label. It's a certificate of analysis, meaning that a third party took this product and tested it for all the things that I told you that soil pulls up. It tested it to make sure that you're not consuming that. Okay. And so you can find good products online. You can find good products, in a store or at a festival. There's a lot of great companies making great, clean, good CBD products, but there's a lot of companies that aren't. So if there's no COA, or if there's no way for you to know, because sometimes this packaging is so tiny. I mean, the preferred way to take it is through oil, and this packaging is super tiny. So some companies will just label it to say a QR code or something that'll refer you to the website or an email, or that you can call to make sure that you can give access to that. If a company is very sketch about that and be like, oh, we'll send you and never send you, or they don't have it, most have it, legitimate businesses have it posted as a link on their website. And here's the thing, make sure that the posting of the product's certificate analysis matches your product. What I found one time is I was looking something up for a client, and their COA, their label for that product, was like 3 years old. And one is, they only make so much product per batch, right? You can only grow so much and make so much. And so that should be pretty fresh within a year or so. And it all depends on how much they move product, right? So if somebody's really moving products, their batches could be done, turn over in 3 to 6 months. That's really big companies. But other companies, if they are making an outside grow, and they make basically one batch a year, then it is going to be a year old. And you can match the batch number to your product number, which needs to be on there, so that you know that this is what they tested, right? There could be, like I said, a little bit what we call full spectrum of THC in your product. So another reason why testing is important is that you can verify that it is no THC or just a little bit. It will tell you that. So another good reason why, if it doesn't have a testing on there, do not use that product. If the company doesn't have it on their website, or is adverse for you to email or call and they don't call you back, don't use that product. I have gotten great kind of support when I have reached out, because people come to me with all kinds of product. Of course, I recommend certain ones that I have vetted, but there's lots of great products out there. So I'm not only guiding on one certain type of product. I'm going to guide you to the products that you have access to. But I have had where people just don't even get back to me. And so I was, kind of guide people to say, hey, I'm not getting real good support. And so you may want to consider looking for a different product. But I've also gotten amazing support, and they're just sending me information and sending me samples and wanting to make sure that they know, that I know that they are providing good products out there. And that's good to know too. So not everybody's, acting in bad manners, but we do know that, hey, this is kind of sitting in the supplement world. And all supplements aren't regulated. So I know a lot of people are like, oh, CBD, it's not regulated. Well, all the supplements aren't regulated, nor are they tested. You have to, unfortunately, our US, FDA and the Food and Drug really just hang on looking at the drugs, and our foods and our herbal supplements are really out there as a buyer beware. So unfortunately, CBD does sit in that, but with these tools, you can find a quality product. And there are quality products and vitamins and supplements too. You just have to do a little digging. So consumption methods, like I said, consistency of any medications, your blood pressure medication isn't going to work, or your blood sugar medications aren't going to work if you're inconsistent about it. So taking it consistently, especially, will yield your best results. Minimum 3, like I was saying, 3 months is what we kind of, give it a try, especially when you're working with a clinician that's guiding you. We may change up dosing quicker because we're working with you and we know how to adjust. But if you're doing this on your own, give it at least 3 to 6 months. Like I said, 1 year is with complex, but I want to put it out there. Some people have just taken it for the year and they finally broke through and got that relief they were looking for. The other important thing is when you're beginning, now when we're talking about trialing, this is beginning a new product or beginning CBD at all versus you've been using it for a while and you're not getting results. And that's a whole other topic. And again, work with a clinician, but sticking with the same product. So the same brand, right? You vetted your brand, you found it. You know that it's good. It's got its testing. Now stay with that, right? Stay with that same product and the strength, right? So there's companies that make different products and different strengths, right? This one's CBD only. This one has CBD plus this. So you got to look, and some are concentrated and it's 600 milligrams in this bottle, but this one has 1500. Because concentration is helpful when you need higher doses. You don't want to be taking a lot of product. You just want concentrated. So the strength is very important to know. And what method you're taking, meaning that it's preferred for best results in an oil, right? So the plant is kind of extracted and then it's put into a carrier oil that you're able to consume. There are other ways to take CBD. There's kind of gel caps, which go through your digestive system. There's gummies, which everybody tends to like, and they all have a reason why you would choose that route. But when we're talking about best results, I can tell you that an oil or an alcohol tincture that's put between your cheek and gum and not going through your gut, which has a lot of variability, as we know, is your best results. So even though I'll work with people to see where they're at and how they want to consume, that's up to them. But we're talking about best results. That's what we're talking about here, is to get to using an oil product. And of course, unless you're guided by it. So you do want to track it. You don't want to not track. So you have to name it to tame it. Tracking keeps you mindful of what you're looking for. Are you improving or is it not? Because if it's not, we want to change things up. And if it is improving, we want to then go ahead and keep going with it, making sure that you have that product and you're able to get that product again. But when we're mindful about anything, mindful about your eating, mindful about your drinking consumption, mindful about your driving habits, mindful about your sleeping, right? When you put more mindfulness to what you're trying to improve, you'll better understand yourself. So there's lots of ways to do this tracking. Personal notebooks, put it on your phone, sketch it down. There's guides out there. There's even apps out there that you can do that. However you want to do that. It's important to, again, know that you want to write down the name, the brand, the amount, the concentration, the time that you took it, how often you took it, what the dose was. You want to gather as much information about it. And then, of course, what effects? Did you feel any effects or did you not feel any effects? And just because you don't feel effects in the beginning, like I said, it does take a little bit of time, doesn't mean it's not working. Just give it a little bit of time and be consistent. don't, a lot of people do this, and it's just like any herb. If you're a cook, you know that you need to keep your herbs in a dark, cool, dry place, right? And that's the same with CBD in any form. So keep them, in a dark, cool place. Now, a lot of people are like, oh, I keep it in the car, or I put it in my purse, or I put it in my gym bag and I take it. That doesn't help with temperature variations, which can degrade the product. Not that I would throw the product away, but it does degrade the product from what it originally says that the effective dose is in there. Temperature variations do just decrease that. Refrigeration is not needed. Sometimes some people translate this recommendation as though I'll put it in the fridge. Now that's good if you bought 6 at a time because it was a Black Friday deal and this is a product that you've been using forever. But in the beginning, I don't recommend bulk purchase. I recommend the smallest amount so that you can trial the smallest amount. But leaving it in the fridge, kind of out of sight, out of mind. And so refrigeration is not necessary, but if that works for you in regards to you found your dose and now you're putting it in the fridge just to keep it, it's not going to harm it. But it is out of sight, out of mind. And so we find inconsistencies with, daily usage and being consistent when you do put it up, out of the sight. So here are my best tips out of the do's and don'ts. I do agree that trialing, for best results of an oil or an alcohol tincture is your best bet. When you use the gut, there's a variety of reasons, a variability of how much medicine actually gets in you. So trialing and using a CBD product for best results is usually in an oil or an alcohol tincture preparation. Trial it in the morning. CBD can be excitatory for some people. So trialing it in the morning is always best. If then you're working and you need a second dose, often in the afternoon, not evening, because of that potential excitatory, until you know how it affects you. And like all medications, low doses do one thing, higher doses do others. So again, if somebody says, oh, that makes me sleepy, and you're like, well, that's weird because it doesn't make me sleepy. It makes me kind of have some energy. It all depends on the dose and, of course, your personal. The other thing is trialing in the morning. Also, if you're going to go ahead and trial, you have companies that'll tell you, go ahead and take a full dropper and take that 2 to 3 times a day. Well, a cannabis clinician would never start you off that way. We would start you off with about a quarter of whatever that dose is. And that's the easiest way to recommend to the general public. Of course, if you're working with me, we're going to personalize that because you might get effectiveness just on a couple drops. But just for today's purposes, a quarter of the dose that they're recommending, because you may get relief at a quarter a dose, which means then that your medicine is going to last longer, which means cost effectiveness. Before you get going, shake any, medicine or any tinctures well, rub your gums because we're going to put it right in between the gum line, look in the mirror, drop your amount into it and hold. And that'll give you the best results when you're trying out a product. All right. So what products do I recommend? Of course, here, there are so many good products out here. So it's hard as an educator to choose. I chose Numi Organics because one is my 2 other affiliations had dissolved for a variety of different tough market reasons. The organic CBD is priority, and so that's why I wanted to make sure that my product that I'm recommending is organic. And the other thing is that it's from Colorado. I'm here in Denver, Colorado. I want to promote a Colorado product, but if those on the East Coast, because I do like to recommend local, that, we have other good products on the East Coast too. Healer.com is who I'm affiliated with if you're on the East Coast, but I also do look at their product line. So when I'm working with you personally, we may look and they may not have a product that might meet your conditions, but it's nice to have a variety of them. So this is the one that I'm working with. If you are interested in trying out a product, Numi is great, Numi.com. Use my code MORE or scan the QR code, and that's my affiliation link to get to a vetted quality product. Of course, I'm always recommending that you work with a cannabis clinician, whether it be myself because of today, learning about this, but I'm not the only, educators out there. There's lots of people you can work with. But when you work with a cannabis clinician, we can get to your lowest effective dose sooner, which will save you time, money, frustration. It'll get you to the relief sooner. And that's the value of paying for a professional to guide you through this algorithm. It is a big algorithm to determine what's the right product, what's the right dose for me. How do I trial it beyond what, you learned today? And then if it's, how do I adjust that if I want to kind of go a little further? So hopefully that is of value to you. If you want to connect, that's how we connect. I believe this QR code does take you to my sign up for my newsletters, which then will kind of, you get in the loop and get information from me. And it's a way for me to connect. If you want to directly connect with me, it's morecanacare.com. So we do have a little bit of time. I am going to come off the recording part and let everybody in to ask any questions.